I'm Julie Maurer, Senior Research Scientist with the Ohio Education Research Center at The Ohio State University's John Glenn College of Public Affairs. I appreciate this opportunity to share an update on our work to better understand the potential impact of Ohio's Broadband and 5G Sector Partnership Initiative on our state's work to provide access for all Ohioans to Internet services. Across the U.S., the pandemic shutdown shone a spotlight on the disadvantages facing many Ohioans without Internet service. Agencies at both the state and federal level renewed their commitment to expanding this critical infrastructure to citizens in unserved and underserved areas. As a result, new programs will direct hundreds of millions of dollars to Internet providers to incentivize the build-out of their current systems. However, a workforce shortage exists among many geographies and occupations needed to accomplish this work. Finding qualified workers to fill in-demand job openings at all stages of the expansion work, from design to build to last-mile connections, will be a major challenge. The persistence and growth of the current workforce supply-demand gap threatens the success of these policies in our state. For just over 2 years, grant-funded resources have been directed toward establishing Ohio's Broadband and 5G Sector Partnership. This novel statewide industry sector partnership involves government, education, and industry stakeholders, and is key to the governor's Broadband and 5G workforce strategy. Sector partnership resources incentivize member organizations to offer free education and training, job search support, wraparound services such as child care and transportation, K-12 awareness, raising curricula, introducing to telecom careers with VR headsets, and promotional and recruitment efforts. Since the partnership was established, we've worked to define what occupations are in demand, including analyzing job postings data and employer survey data. On the supply side, we've analyzed higher education system administrative data and IPEDS data to quantify graduation counts over time for telecom-related post-secondary programs across all levels. A preliminary literature review is done to identify best practices and policies related to industry sector partnerships and past systems modeling work in this space. Based on these preliminary findings, the working dynamic hypothesis is the broadband and 5G sector partnership positively impacts the state's objective to reduce the workforce gap, thereby reducing the internet access gap. A causal loop diagram has proven helpful for understanding how interactions between the elements of the sector partnership system influence the telecom sector workforce dynamics and ultimately the expansion of Ohio's broadband and 5G network. It also serves as a shared mental model of the factors driving the impact of various programming and policy decisions on the telecom workforce system and is useful for consensus building across our diverse group of non-technical stakeholders. This initial CLD represents relationships within the causal chains and reflects the results of both quantitative and qualitative data analytics, including input from key stakeholder interviews and surveys. We use both quantitative and qualitative data to ensure that the observed trends are grounded in the context of the unique factors influencing the system across various time periods and geographies. For example, data from 2020 reflects education and employment dynamics that occurred during the pandemic shutdown. We try to minimize the data disruptions caused by anomalous events such as these. This approach considers the government's objective to reduce or eliminate the broadband and 5G access gap that exists in Ohio by offering funding to incentivize providers to expand the current telecom infrastructure. Causal relationships between variables are represented as the polarity of each link, specifically when the independent variable changes with a particular sign, plus or minus, then the following values of the dependent variable will be less or more than what they would have been. Now we'll take a closer look at the CLD and the relationships between the various system components. The preliminary objective is shown with available infrastructure gap reduction being the desired state. Incentives to telecom providers increase as additional funding becomes available from state and federal agencies' investments. As expansion work increases, there is higher workforce demand by employers, which is represented as the provider's hiring variable. As hiring rates increase, the build-out progresses and the access gap is reduced, which is a negative effect, with the gap being less than it would have been without infrastructure expansion. Expansion funding directed to the sector partnership provides education, training, and marketing resources to providers in the workforce development ecosystem, which is expected to grow the number of students being trained for telecom jobs and the available pool of qualified job seekers. Population growth rates, including immigration and ex-migration impacts, are also considered. As the workforce supply increases, there's a positive effect on the employer hiring rate. This approach considers the attractiveness of the incentives offered to providers, their motivation to close the gap given additional funding received, as well as their actual response in taking up the grants that are offered. Insights we've gained from this work include learning about the various factors influencing the supply of graduates from post-secondary education programs that were not obvious to many stakeholders. These include competition between industries for STEM students, lags in the system from differences in the time required to attain credentials ranging from short-term certificates to doctorates in engineering, and the influence of overall state population dynamics on the number of students entering the education system. Insights into employer hiring dynamics include the complex nature of the sector and its subsectors that requires a broad range of education and training programs, the lack of public awareness of telecom sector career opportunities, growing competition between industries for the same talent, and the interstate migration of employees. Insights into the broadband access gap itself include understanding the role of the workforce supply-demand gap on infrastructure expansion, the expected exponential growth rate of workforce demand once expansion funding is received, and the ways in which sector partnership initiatives or incentives can impact the overall system by growing the available talent pool. Once finalized, this CLD will guide the development of stock and flow model that will provide insights into which policies might be most effective at closing Ohio's broadband access gap. A statewide sector partnership data collection system has been established, and we're looking forward to having a lot more data to work with in the future, including participant level data. With that, I'll wrap up and ask a couple questions. Are you aware of any other similar modeling efforts going on, or of any existing industry sector partnership best practices or case studies that we might be interested in? Thank you.